Hey, Chris from Codify Academy here. In this video, I'm going to introduce you into one of my favorite coding methods, replications. While I was learning to code, recreating what others had done helped me understand how to actually structure HTML and CSS so it was actually easier to change in the future. I've learned so much over the years by reading others' code and recreating it for myself. It helps you truly understand what the code is doing. So I strongly recommend you do not stop using this method of learning while you code. Alright, so now that we know what replications are, let's get our environment set up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open our Codify folder in Atom. And we're going to create a new project folder for this website we're going to create. So let's duplicate the template folder. We're going to name it Logo. And then we can move it into week 1. This is technically a project from week 1. So in our index, got some old content from my template here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to update the title real quick. Okay, and then let's open this up. You should have the button to open in Chrome. And we can see the title there. Okay, so let's find the website we're actually going to replicate. I'll put this URL in the description of the video. So this is the website we're going to replicate, and let's look at the code. Okay, so let's right click up here, and we're going to view page source. Now this is all of the HTML that is required to build this web page. And we can also right click and inspect. And under the Elements tab, this is also pretty much all of the HTML that is required to create the website. If we hover over a particular element, we can also see CSS that's being added to it. And there's a main CSS file. If we click on this, we can see in our Sources tab all of the CSS that's required. Okay, so I could copy all of this HTML and paste it here. And then in my CSS, I could do the same. And refresh, voila, we have our web page complete, right? Well, not really. I mean, we don't really know what any of that code meant. So let's go ahead and replicate this website one line at a time. Okay, because that's really what you want to do with a website replication is you want to go one line at a time. You add a little bit of HTML, you add a little bit of CSS, and then you check it. You see if it works, you see if you're moving closer towards the desired look. Okay, so we'll start in our HTML. And right now I'll tell you this is an extra class. We're not going to add that onto our HTML tag, but we will add this attribute lang equals en. So that's just telling the browser that the language is English. And nothing's going to really change there, so we can just move on. Let's look at the body tag here. And again, I know that this is extra. We're going to leave all that off. And here is the selector for the body tag. Now the background color is gray and they set the margin to 0. So we need to go into our main CSS and add this style in. So I have it open here. I'm going to split the screen real quick. Add our body, background color, and AE repeating, right? Then we have margin 0. We can save that and see. Alright, so we have our first CSS added, and that looks good. Okay, so the next element we need is a div, and inside of there we see we have 5 other divs, and we're just going to focus on this first one here, the header, which has a span inside of that with a class and some text. Okay, so we're going to create the HTML for that, and then we'll look at the CSS. Now again, classes we'll just use to select in CSS to style. And let's add our text so we can see it. So let's go ahead and save that, look at our web page. Alright, and there's our text. So the next thing we need to look at is the CSS. We'll go back to our wrapper div here and we'll see we have some CSS, margin 0 auto. Testing to make sure that it's going to look exactly the same as ours. So there we go. Well, we just have a capital L, but that's fine. All right, so let's start on the outside. So we're going to select all elements with the class of wrapper, and then apply some properties. The next selector we have is a class of header. And we need to apply the background color and padding. I should have copied that background color because I did not remember it. Paste in here and save and refresh. And there we go, the logo shifted over. Cool, now it's getting closer. The last thing we need is this background color, the display inline block, the font size, padding, and text transform uppercase. So we can click off these one at a time to see what each property does. Right, and then we just want to practice adding it in. Alright, and if we add all of those properties correctly, we should see our logo. There we go. Cool, so that's 1 out of, 5 sections so far. And we can move on to the next div because we just styled all of those elements. We can close that up. So next div we have is a div of navigation. We have a UL inside of that with an LI, a bunch of LIs actually, and each one has an A tag. Now these are all the same. And again, we'll slowly work our way down with the styles. But let's add in the HTML first. Remember, you can add URLs to those href attributes on the A tag if you'd like. I would strongly recommend doing it. I've just been doing this forever, so I skipped that. But here's an example. Alright, so let's go have a look. And here we go. Here's our links on the side of the page. And again, if we go through and uncheck all of our main.css styling, we should see the A tags on the left-hand side, just like our version. We're getting closer already. Yep, something else is off. We missed something. Our wrapper is supposed to go around our navigation. So we need to cut that and paste that down here. And let's tab that over. And I'm going to make a little comment here real quick. Closing an element that it has a class of wrapper, right? And we'll do the same here for our header. This just helps out. A little easier on the eyes when you're looking at it later. Alright, cool. So our navigation is now inside of our wrapper. And then if we look at it, there we go. Looks the same. So now let's add that CSS. So first we have a background color on our class of navigation. So go into our CSS, make sure it's spelled the same, and cool. Check that. Oh, didn't work. Why not? Did you misspell it maybe? Nope. Why is it not working? Let's try to figure this out real quick. We have our div with the class of navigation here. So it's not showing up over here. Let's get rid of that just because you don't really know what that is yet. Div class navigation, what's off here? Oh, spelling, look at that, spelling error. Been doing this for years and even I spelled class wrong. Alright, there we go, it's going good. Background colors applied. So now if we look at our navigation UL, oh no, this is a selector we haven't seen, so what this is saying is first find me any element with the class of navigation. That's what the dot navigation is saying. And then with the space, it's saying go inside of that element and find me all of the UL tags. Now we only have one UL tag, but that's why these properties are being applied here, because this UL sits inside of an element that has a class of navigation. So dot navigation finds all elements with the class of navigation. Inside of there, once they have all of those collected, they basically put them in a bucket. And then they look at them one at a time and say, is there a UL inside of here? If so, style that. So that's how we're going to set up our next selector. This is known as a descendant selector. Talking so much, I didn't even look at the properties. So margin 0, padding left. Okay, and let's look at ours. Perfect, right? Looks exactly the same now. Well, pretty much, except, oh, again, we capitalized the L. All right, let's look at each individual LI. Now they're all going to get the same property because of that same descendant selector again. First they're going to find an element with the class of navigation that's here. We're going to look inside and then find all of the LI tags, right? So each LI is going to have these same properties, display inline blocks, which will make them sit next to each other, and this padding, which will increase the space between each other. Okay, so we'll go and we'll add these properties in, and then our LIs will look like this. All right, and then we'll go check ours, make sure it looks the same now. There we go. So now our LIs all have those properties being applied. All right, and next up is going to be our A tags. Let's look at each individual one. So again, same type of selector, descendant selector. Find a class of navigation inside A tags. Any A tag will have all of these properties applied. So we have color, white, text decoration none, that removes that underline, and text transform uppercase. So let's go ahead and add those in. All right, go ahead and save and refresh, and there we go. And that's our navigation. Let's add a little comment here. That way if we need, we can search for it later. And next up is our main and sidebar. Now these work together, so I'm probably going to create these two sections first and then work on the content separately. Now we didn't really add any content inside, so those elements are just going to kind of exist right now with no height, and we can see that it says 10022 by 0 pixels. Alright, so let's go add the CSS. First on our main div we have a background color. We'll float it to the left instead of width, so we can also do the same to our sidebar, and then they'll sit next to each other. And then we're going to add a minimum height, so the content box is at least 600 pixels high. We're going to do the same thing for our sidebar, only difference is the background color. All right, let's go check this out. Let's look at the properties. If we remove float, see the elements now sit on one on top of each other. We don't want that though, we want them to sit next to each other. So let's go ahead and check ours out. And there we go, we got the sections created, looking pretty nice. Now we just have to add in the HTML, right? All right, so if we look at the main section, we have a H1 element and some P tags, 4 P tags using the lorem fake text. So we're going to highlight this content real quick because we don't want to have to type out content. We're not content creators after all, we are creating websites here. All right, and let's add in the website title. You can obviously change this to something you'd like. Strongly recommend that you actually add in content that you care about. You can just go, copy it from some other website real quick that you really like. All right, so then we are going to add in these P tags. I'm going to add a little bit of space here real quick because this text is going to be a lot. And then you can highlight them all and just tab them over. So save that and check it out. And there we go. And if we remove the styles from the H1 and P tags here, we'll see that it looks the same. Now we just need to add some styling to the H1 and the P tag in the main section. So we're going to add padding left to our H1 inside of an element with the class of main. Alright, and then we're going to select our P tag inside of an element with the class of main. We're going to add some padding, first to the top and the bottom, 5 pixels. Then the left and the right, 35 pixels. That way it looks the same, just like their replication. Do a quick refresh, and there we go, it looks the same. Alright, 2 more sections to go. Let's get the content for the sidebar. So we have an H2 here, and a UL with a bunch of LI and A tags again. So let's add in our second header in our HTML in our sidebar, and then our UL with LI and A tags. So let's do this a bunch of times real quick. You could copy paste, but you want to get into the habit of creating the elements yourself. I've been doing this for years and I'm typing them out, so you should type them out too. Of course I'm using the shortcut to create them, but I'm still making sure that each element has an opening and closing tag. All right, so let's check this out. We'll go ahead and remove the styling here on the H2. See any styling on the LI or A tags? Looks like nothing. The only thing they have is the user agent style sheet. So we actually ignore that. We don't see anything in a main.css file or anything like that. So we can actually just style the H2, padding on the left. All right, now it looks the same. And one last div, the footer. We have a P tag inside of that. We have some styles. Let's remove those styles real quick. And we'll see it is just some text. So let's add that in real quick. Add this extra little comment here. Double check, make sure it looks the same. There we go, it's just some text, perfect. And again, let's add some styling, right? So we're gonna select our element with the class of footer here. We're gonna add this clear property. It doesn't really appear to do anything, but we'll see. Background color, font size, and some padding. That looks like the clear property is going to actually allow the padding to be applied. Looks like without it, it does not apply, so we definitely need that. It's utilized with floating elements to allow content to not be interfered with the stuff above. So let's go ahead and select our footer and add these in. Let's go ahead and save that and we'll see it. It should look like that. There we go. Looking pretty close. Again, we use a capital C on ours, but other than that, it looks the same. And then the last properties we need are going to go on the P tag inside of the element with the class of footer. And we're going to apply a margin of 0, which looks like going to kind of shrink it up a little bit. P tag actually has a bunch of that margin, that orange right there is margin. We're going to apply a color of white, and then again padding left to align it with the other text here. Alright, and if we save and refresh, our page should look exactly the same as this simple website. So I encourage you to spend some time, look up some of these properties and elements you might not have known, and try to get more of an understanding of them.